lovers. My name is Buell. I am the Schenectady County historian. I'm coming to you today from the Grems Doolittle Library at the Schenectady County Historical Society. With us today to help commemorate Black History Month is Tony Lewis. Tony's a Schenectady native, a 1990 graduate of Mount Pleasant High School, who then went on to attend Schenectady County Community College and the University at Albany, where he got a BA in history in 1994 and then a master's in secondary education in 1996. Tony is now a history teacher in the city school district here in Schenectady. Tony, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been a history teacher at Schenectady? And you're in the high school.
In
right?
the high school, yes. This is my 25th year. Yeah, a long time.
So right after you got your master's, you started working?
Yeah, I subbed for around a year and then went right in after that.
Huh. And you told me you teach Global History 10 and
Yep.
African American History?
Exactly.
What exactly is Global History 10?
Global History 10 is the second year course curriculum for European history.
So you're teaching about what?
We teach from the world from 1750 up to modern times. Mm-hmm. There's a lot in there: the Enlightenment, Industrial Revolution, imperialism, World War I, on. So it's a lot of curriculum. And
then African American history, that's a pretty broad name right there.
Yeah, it's a 20-week course, and we go from basically from slavery up until modern times. And for the last couple of years, we've been putting a focus on Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of current events, right. And we have a focus on Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and a few other people in between there, just to give the kids perspective on African American leadership. Mm-hmm. So, they get a broad perspective. And then if you get some students who have a curiosity about a course or some of their interests, if time's allotted, we try to incorporate that into the course.
Mm-hmm. So you're teaching high school sophomores, seniors, juniors? What?
I have sophomores, but in the African American history course, it's open up to anyone who would like to take the class. It's an elective.
And do you have the opportunity to look at local Black history in that course?
We can do that. Mr. Neil Yetwin was a teacher who recently retired, right. And he used to teach some of the local history. We try to do some of that, but I've kind of made it for, how can I put this? You have to meet the taste of the modern student, mm-hmm. to keep them interested in the course. Right. So, we have a lot of local history for African Americans. Mm-hmm. You just have to get the kids involved in it.
Sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, it's a little difficult, but you have to, just like with European history or global studies, you have to make it digestible for them. Mm-hmm. But once you entertain them with understanding the value of history, they begin to like it. And you tell them there's a lot of local history that's good. Mm-hmm. Like just certain people like Moses Viney, for instance. And you start to let them see that interest, mm-hmm. but how long can you hold their interest in it? That's mm-hmm. the question. Right. And I try to do that, but it's just what they're interested in nowadays. And if they're interested in it, mm-hmm. they'll adapt to it. You kind of
let them take you where you have to go. Mm-hmm. When did you decide that you wanted to be a teacher?
All right. So
did you stumble upon it like so many of us stumble upon our professions, or was it?
I've always had an interest in history, even from a young age. Mike Wallace, he used to have his show Biography, mm-hmm. and that was a little black and white show on cable, and I used to just watch that and just some of the figures that were on that show. And then in 10th grade, My 10th grade social studies teacher, Mr. Lemon, Bob Lemon. Yeah, he. I used to goof around. I used to goof around a lot in school, and he.
Okay.
One day he was like, "You should be a history teacher. Go to school to be a history teacher." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And I mean, this was probably like halfway through the school year. He approached me with that, and he just stayed on me with that. And he just said, there's more to you than what you show. You have an interest in this. You got a good character. And he just constantly said this stuff. And after a while, I just said, maybe that's a good idea. But he talked about other things than just teaching the curriculum. He just talked about being compatible with people. I think he said like the fruits of the job. So little things like that. And then by the time I graduated, I thought about that. And that was my primary focus. Although I thought about anthropology quickly, but I abandoned that.
One of my questions was if you had a teacher who inspired you or got you motivated. So it sounds like he would fill that bill. Was there anybody else, any coach or teacher in this Schenectady school district?
I had a lot of teachers. Elementary, I could say all of my elementary teachers at Horace Mann and King School. Mr. Washington, Mrs. Ford, Mr. Little, who recently passed away. But the number one is Gail Smith, who was Gail Acox at the time. She was my kindergarten teacher. And I always say she took a special interest in me, but she took a special interest in all of her students. Yeah. So I had her in kindergarten, and then again I had her in 5th grade. And in kindergarten I learned to read, right? Just everything. And I just was laced with those skills at a young age. So you never abandoned them.
You're growing up in the 80s in Schenectady. Were there a lot of black teachers or no?
In Horace Mann and King School, there were a few. But as you move through, there were some, but not a lot. Yeah. But Horace Mann and King School, you had community-based schooling back then, as I would look at it. So
and that's
they
1
were
through
there.
6?
1 through 5.
1 through 5.
Yeah, 1 through 5th.
Okay. And are there a lot more now?
There's more than there were back when I was in school. So the number has definitely increased. And they're in elementary, middle school, high school. So a lot more.
Any more coaches or teachers that you want to single out for helping you stay on the straight and narrow path?
In high school, like I said, Mr. Lemon, my English teachers, Miss Daly, Miss Gross, but the one singular person, Coach Denola. So he was our basketball coach there, mentor, but he was a person who stayed after you to make sure. So when I got to high school, I was in the lower track classes, and he put me in the college prep classes, and that changed everything for me because I started to really change my perspective on learning in high school. And another thing I liked about him, he was an intellectual. So it came through in his approach with you in teaching, coaching. I never had him for a student, but if you know him, teaching and coaching is one and the same. So he was very influential. And then when I became a teacher, still the same thing. Mentor, helped me out. So
if you weren't a teacher, what do you think you'd be doing with yourself right now?
like I tell people, teaching was the only thing that I set out to do. But before that, I've always worked with kids. So I was a camp counselor. I worked at Northeast Parent and Child for a while, for a couple of years. So it would definitely be something working with kids.
So if you sit down to read a book and you can pick any time period or any event to study, to look into, what time period is that, or what historical event is it that kind of just grabbed your interest more than other areas? Civil War, World War II?
Oh boy. There for pleasure, I like the Renaissance era, the Jim Crow era, just because, and I should say the Harlem Renaissance era, and just because of the freedom of the writing of the people who wrote back then. The person I like, Langston Hughes, just a real gifted writer. The expression of his writing, and just that period alone, because the transition, and that's one of the things I try to bring to my African American history class. Like we talk about like slavery. Some kids don't want to learn about slavery, but one of the sticking points of learning about slavery is the endurance of what African Americans had to wade through to get to where we're at right now. And then once they understand that, and then we get to a period like the Harlem Renaissance and the civil rights movements, they start to understand what it means to endure, to get through, and then come out on the other side. So,
and just to be
I
clear,
like
when
that.
you say the Harlem Renaissance, you're talking 1950s or?
No, that's from the mid 20s to the 30s.
Okay.
Just all the way up. Just the literature, the art, the playwrights, just everything. So it's just the expressive freedom of the African Americans in New York and all those people who came into that area with the music, everything.
Do you remember feeling unrepresented when you were in middle school or junior high school or high school as far as Black history goes? Was there much of it?
Like I tell people, when we were in school, you had slavery, civil rights, but PBS, you learned some stuff from PBS. I do know that when I got to SUNY Albany, I had to play a lot of catch up because the kids that came from New York City at SUNY Albany, that's like the mecca of Black culture. So I minored in African American history, and they knew so much more. So I had to catch up to them in a lot of stuff in some of the classes I took. But PBS definitely, they had a
Who was
lot of
turning
stuff.
on PBS at your house? You have
Me,
an older brother, your parents?
well, there was no cable, so there was four at the time. There was we had four channels around here,
Right.
so you watch what was on. So you seen stuff, but then another thing too. We had the art center here, the Hamilton Hill Art Center. So we had a focus on African American perspective with art, arts and crafts, just learning stuff there. And my sister worked there, my sister Valerie Lewis. So I spent time there growing up, and the Boys Club in Carver, and they put on different Black History Month activities there. So you learned all that stuff.
Do you remember going to the Hamilton Hill Art Center for the first time, or kind of was it always there in your consciousness?
I just, like I said, my sister worked there, so I just always remembered going there. And back then it was different. They had a lot of different functions, but it was an after school program. So you would go there. They had Christmas functions, but it was just a big part. I remember one of the things they would, if I remember, I don't want to misquote myself. I think they used to put on a talent show at King School in the auditorium. But they used to do a lot of big things that highlighted the Black experience. So we've always had that. But then back to PBS, just like even now with some of the shows they do, like, you just learn about different things. And PBS has always done a good job. Like, I still watch it now, American Experience. They have a lot of good things on there. So.
And do you encourage your students to watch PBS too?
Yeah, I bring that to my class.
Oh, okay.
So back I was saying, you have to make a lot of this stuff digestible for them. So a lot of students, they say they're visual learners now. So if you want them to read something, I don't like reading. Okay, so we have to learn this stuff. So you give them a visual presentation, and PBS has a lot of good things. So there's a lot of things we get from PBS. Like, for instance, like I just finished the first half year course. I'm into the second with a new group of kids, but we're virtual now, which I think we'll get into. Yeah. But one of the things that the kids we discuss, like the whole Emmett Till situation, and we watched the video on that, and they're just like, wow, for something like that to happen to a kid around their age. And I think if they had to read it, it wouldn't resonate with them as much as seeing it. So once they've seen something like that, and then to go through and be able to write about it is different. Where if they had to sit there and read about it, which they probably wouldn't be too.
Can you sense their reaction to it? It must be annoying. It must be hurtful.
You know what? In class, like if we were in a traditional class, you could see virtually. It's a little different, but in the chat box, they put they put little things in there. But when we talk about a call to action, so you talk about how would you react to that, and then some of the exercises we do, like on Jim Crow, like how does that make you feel? Angry. How would you handle that? So, and then like I said, one of the things we tie it to, like Black Lives Matter. So what would you do, or how would you deal with that situation to change it? So then they start seeing like Martin Luther King's approach. How will that still be relevant today in light of what's going on?
Did you talk about the attack on the Capitol at all, or not really?
No, not really.
Formally, right? Yeah. Okay. Any historical figures that you find particularly inspiring? Lincoln, Martin Luther King, anybody like that out there?
I have a lot, and I break them down. I like Frederick Douglass. I like W.E.B. Du Bois. All right, those are my two favorite. An American, Abraham Lincoln. Now, in my class, we have a lesson and a writing assignment. Should he be considered the great emancipator? And that's assignment that the kids like. And then on the European side and the global study side, my favorite person is Stalin.
Well, you're going to have to explain that, Mr. Lewis.
For a lot of reasons. He turned around a country and made it a superpower. For one,
He did do that.
Yeah, I don't want to say he made it an economical power, but he made it into a totalitarian state. And he did it his way. Another person.
You're not recommending that, though.
No, I'm not recommending.
Okay.
I just like that.
Right.
I like Otto von Bismarck. See, now you're putting me on the
How
spot
about,
here.
I know, how about black women? Now I'll really put you on the spot.
Ida B. Wells.
Okay.
So you definitely got to start with her because she was in the belly of the beast before a lot of people understood what was really going on in the South. So well, they knew what was going on, but she really talked about it. And then on the other hand, like you say, women. One of the things I just started doing this probably within the last 4 years. Mary Wollstonecraft with
Oh.
like women's rights. Like I never really focused on that, but when you talk about women's rights, there has to be a starting point for females and letting them know that, you have to be more than just present. You have to be seen and heard. And I think Mary Wollstonecraft, she's the start of that, feminism, suffragist, all of those things. So,
You brought up COVID, so I
mhm.
wanted to hit that. You've been virtual since September. Have the kids been in class at all or no?
No, we've been virtual since last March.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I mean, last March when this whole thing hit us, we've been virtual. At the start of this school year, it's been much different. So we've been virtual. We have Google Class that's set up so the kids, it's just like a regular class, but we're all in our own homes, in our own space. Kids log in, they choose to have their cameras on or off, and you teach. And it's a little taxing on them. It's taxing on myself, but you got to get the job done.
Did it seem horrible those first few weeks back in March and April?
I wouldn't use the word horrible, but it was tough because you're used to standing in front of a class and then going around and motivating kids getting ready to go, and um, you're staring at a screen and you're hoping the kid will respond to you. And I think the more they get used to you or comfortable, you'll get some kids to respond, but it's hit or miss. But you put the onus on them, and though I mean, you talk about being a motivated learner, and they get to go. But just I tell kids don't be anonymous, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then you got those kids, as soon as class starts, their camera's there, good morning or good afternoon, and what are we doing today? And they're ready to go.
What's your typical class size these days?
Uh, Anywhere from 27 to 32 kids.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
okay. That seems like a lot to me,
It's
but
it it it, se- it seems like a lot, but it's not. And the reason I say that, once you get class going, it's just kids and interaction. You know what I'm saying? So it's not, to me, it's not that bad.
Are you getting emails from your students all the time?
All the
All
time.
the time.
And that's what I tell kids. I'm like, if you don't want to say anything, you need help, let me know. And you'll get emails at all times of the day. So, I mean, with this new reality, you have kids doing work. And I mean, my perspective, I mean, we're on break right now. And all this week on the Today Show, they've been talking about kids learning during this pandemic. And it's been taxing on them. Kids dealing with all sorts of things, like, being depressed and all that, and how they're dealing with it. So they're saying it's too much work because they're sitting in front of a computer all day. And then at the end of the day, they're still sitting in front of a computer. So you have to say, okay, how do you deal with this? And it's just one teacher, and now you got 4 or 5 other teachers, and you just have to find a balance to help that kid. So homework has to be different. You know what I'm saying? But you still have to say, okay, I have to teach this kid appropriately because they're still we don't know if they're still going to take their state mandated Regents exam. So that's what I tell kids. I'm like, I still have to prepare you like you're going to take the Regents exam. So it's, it's not like, okay, we're sitting here, let's do a little of this and then see you later. No, I still got to prepare you. We have to write, we have to learn the curriculum. So we all have to persevere.
Before the pandemic, were you involved in any other student activities?
Not really. I used to do after school programs and all that, and then I used to work a summer job with Schenectady Job Training Agency, the summer youth program. But the last 3 years, I've kind of given all that up. So it's I mean, it was fun because you get to know kids outside of the school setting, and you get to talk to them about career choices and all that. But to tell you the truth, it's fun, but it's taxing after a while, and you have to wind down after a while. Because I used to do summer school, and then I went right into that, and that's going year round for a long time. So
let me close by asking you, are you optimistic for the future? Teaching-wise, student-wise?
Always. Because, I mean, students will bounce back from this because they're resilient. I'm going to be resilient. I'm ready to go back to the class. I think everybody is. You want to be safe, of course. You just make sure that. I think it's just like you haven't rode a bike in a while, and you get back on it, and you just get right back to it.
Right.
So I think being back in the traditional setting, kids are going to be rusty a little bit. But I will tell you one of the benefits of this is the technological piece. So that is a great benefit. So a lot of the skills from Google Classroom, that has definitely been a benefit.
Okay. Tony Lewis, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.